everyone. So should I start the first one? Or are you going to present all? Okay, I can start.
You should start.
I can start. Okay. So hello to everyone. It's really my pleasure to introduce. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Okay. So I just can't do this mode of, okay. Okay, now it's okay. So as Agla said, so our center was the coordinator of the overall Erasmus Plus project. And it was thought like a project directed towards general or secondary school education, and we had very clear and specific aim of what we wanted to achieve. So I was told that my slides are not changing, so I might stop here again and try to do it again because they are not changing. Okay.
Taiva, now we can see, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, so I think that you can hear me right now. That's right?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the project aimed to support teachers and school leaders and all pedagogical communities to develop and to assess students' generic competences. So in some countries, it's called transversal competences. Life competences. So we have many different names to name the competences. In our project, we call them generic competences. And we were seeking to support by trying to catch, to understand what is the progress and success of all our students and each single student, and how it's possible to do it at classroom and at school level. And we were focusing also on so-called low academic achievements. So to those students who have some specific needs, some struggle with academic learning, and how we were intending to achieve it. So by developing and testing universal model of competence development assessment, as I said, at classroom and at school level. So as you know, so all projects are asking, all proposals have to show, so what is innovative in our project? Why our project is different and how is different from other similar projects? So on the first place, we wanted to develop really universal model for development and assessment of all generic competences, just to be applicable for all different range of competence in spite of different contexts in terms of countries, in terms of school cultures, and so on, rather than focusing on a framework for one or few selected competences. The second point, so we wanted to combine assessment of academic content, disciplinary literacy, and generic competences. Third is that we want to build our project on synthesis of practice, of best practice, and the research. Fourth, so we were thinking that it we not like how to say, like a project managers, project coordinators, so it will be not enough for us to do. to achieve our goals. So why we decided just to have a support in our team of teacher mentors from all 3 participating countries, and to train teacher mentors on competence-based assessments. And so we had a long program for competence development and assessment. Other innovative aspects that we were seeking to cover and almost all levels of schooling, and we did it from pre-primary, primary, lower secondary and upper secondary, and even professional teaching in the professional schools. Also, as we said before, so we worked on both and at school level. And 7 also focused, as we said, on the low achievers and the disadvantaged groups of students, socially disadvantaged groups of students. And the last one, bottom-up approach. So teacher mentors were co-creators, co-developers of our model. We work together with them. And the final version that you will see it. So it is final version. It is. So please mute yourself because I'm speaking on the top of other voice. Thank you. And the final version that you will see, it is outcome of our joint efforts. So what we got and what kind of objectives we had. So first we started from scientific search for scientific wisdom, what science says about competence development and assessment. So we started from literature analysis, and the literature analysis brought us to a so-called compendium of summarized scientific literature and tailored specifically for teachers to read and use, to be in the very simple and user-friendly manner. And also we had another output, a report on in-country documents, policy documents, and existing practices in connection to competence development and assessment. The second objective was that we wanted to create and pilot this universal tool for competence development assessment in a form of a methodical model. And this model was followed by guidelines, by practical guidelines, how to implement into teaching practice. The third objective was that we wanted to support and sustain a culture of sharing, professional learning together in different countries, among countries. So, and also share the best examples in a set of best practices. And set of best practices is also a volume of different teaching practices, how to develop competences and how to assess them in 3 different countries, very wide range of examples of practices from primary to upper secondary level. And the last one, to provide teacher communities, teacher educators, policymakers with recommendations on competence development and assessment. And those recommendations are based not on, not on every knowledge, every wisdom around us, but on our own practices that were brought into our project. So some numbers. So project duration is 6 months. So this is the last month. We had 15 mentors with us and over 35 teachers who were involved in piloting process, and around 1,000 pupils that they participated in competence development lessons. We have 3 national collections in our own national languages that contain 60 examples of competence development and assessment. And as I said, we have 5 intellectual outputs produced. And here you can see the covers of all 5 outputs, and also site where you can find them all presented. So thank you very much. This is a very short presentation overview of our project. So it doesn't reflect overall process, how it was, but maybe you will understand how it was in the second part of our conference, when teachers will be presenting their examples and they will share how it was, what is from that, what they have got from that, how it can be used after the project end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daiva. So one of the main products or the main results of our projects, which took a lot of time, a lot of discussions, a lot of efforts, and we developed a model and guidelines of competence development and assessment, which was piloted in different schools. So now it's my pleasure to invite Maria Kovac, who is Vice President of Romanian Association of Reading and Writing for Critical Thinking. And Maria will present this, our main outcome of the project.
Hello, everyone. So let me share my slides. I promise to be brief, and as Daiva already mentioned, most of the practical things you will hear in later today. Just to introduce the presentation of this COMPASS model, which is a model of competence development and assessment. We had an earlier version which was much nicer, I might say. It was friendlier, it was more colorful, but we decided in time that it would have been a bit too loaded with writing. So as we went on in the project, we settled for this model. Now, this is just a general view of the model. I will zoom in a minute and explain one loop in more detail. But just to look at the big picture, there are two essential graphic elements in it. One of them is the vertical arrow, which is accompanied by the writing increasingly refined understanding of competence. And the other big graphic element is this spiral, which has numerous loops, and it actually suggests, as you can see, that it goes on and on and on. Now, I do stress that this is both a model of competence development and assessment, because we find it very difficult, if not impossible, to separate the two. It is natural for competence development and assessment to go hand in hand. And the other thing that we don't have in this graphic representation is the actors, the teachers and the students. And the reason why we don't have them anywhere mentioned is because we quite strongly believe that both students and teachers are equally involved in each phase of this process of competence development and assessment. And even in terms of assessment, students very often are teachers themselves, so to say. So let me zoom in and explain one loop of the spiral. So we start with defining and describing the competence. And if there was one element which sets apart, which is truly innovative about this model, we believe that this is it. Generally, the competence, and in our case, the generic competences, a competence, therefore, is so broad, it is so complex that it's very difficult to provide any one comprehensive, exhaustive description or definition. Therefore, we think it is extremely important for the teacher and the students to define and describe the competence together. Because if they do this together, then the students will actually understand what it is that the teacher or the education system, if you want to put it more broadly, is expecting of them. After the definition and description in as concrete terms as possible, in as concrete behaviors as possible of the competence, comes the diagnostic assessment. Now, once we have agreed what the competence is, we should look at where we are, where the students are in terms of mastering the competence. Obviously, the teacher's role is to develop an assessment tool. But in our experience, very often that assessment tool actually was used as a self-assessment tool. And the diagnostic role of the assessment was, again, revealed to both teachers and students. So students became more aware of what they can already do, and therefore they could move very nicely and smoothly into what you see on the extreme right, goal setting. Goal setting is generally done by the teacher, again, and it couldn't be done by the student if the student doesn't understand the competence in this case. So in our case, precisely because the students were involved in describing the competence and in doing the diagnostic assessment, to establish where they are at the start of the learning process, they could commit to goals. So they could commit to pursuing goals that they understand. And with that goal setting, obviously the teacher also has a say in this goal setting, right? The teacher will guide the students in how to set their goals. But goal setting in itself is important for the student as well, because the student as if signs up for what he or she will be striving to achieve. Now, when the goal setting is done, there come teaching and learning activities. And these are basically ample opportunities for teachers and for the teacher and the students to work together and practice the competence. So in fact, the teaching learning activities, as you can imagine, need to be precisely aligned with the goals that each student sets. So maybe those learning activities are not equal for all students because their goals may be slightly different. A very important element in this part of the loop is formative assessment, or assessment for learning, as we also call it. And this is extremely important because it helps the students be as focused as possible and clearly to correct where necessary and to make sure that they are on target. Very often, formative assessment takes the form of prompt, timely, constructive, specific feedback, which can come equally from the teacher or from other students. Now, when this, as you can see in the middle of the oval, there are other smaller ovals, or if you want, the smaller parts of this spiral, which sort of suggests that the teaching and learning activities can be very many, and it actually depends on how much time we have for this, and how ambitious the goals were, and how much time different students need for the learning activities to prove effective. Now, when all this loop is done, at the end of it, on the exit side, you can see summative assessment. The summative assessment is what we all know generally to be the sort of end of unit or end of semester or end of year or end of some learning process assessment. And we see it as not just a sort of establishing where we got, but also the beginning of a new loop, because summative assessment will then feed into the next loop and obviously, first of all, into the next goal setting. I would like to just point out some key defining features. We believe that these are the very important, the essential features of our model. So there's coherence among diagnostic, formative, and summative assessments. And proof to this is that very many of our colleagues, of our teacher colleagues who tested the model, found themselves naturally using the same assessment instrument for both diagnostic and formative and summative purposes, which makes a lot of sense, in fact. Then another important thing is that assessments are aligned with goal setting and further with teaching learning activities. So there has to be a very clear alignment here. And as I already said, and I don't mind repeating it, students can only set their own learning goals, and they can only own those learning goals if they understand very well what they are aiming for. So this again confirms the importance of their involvement from the very beginning in defining, describing the competence. Now, competence development, if you remember the vertical arrow pointing upwards, competence development leads to more profound understanding of the competence itself, more profound, more nuanced understanding. And this, in turn, helps better focused goal setting. So, when you broadly aim for better cooperation, that's such a big thing, but maybe in the beginning, that's all you aim for when you want to develop the generic competence of, say, interacting with others. However, once you move into practicing the competence, you will understand that there are components, smaller bits of it, that can be better targeted. So I don't know, maybe active listening is a very important part you figure out of cooperation. Then another thing that competence development with more profound understanding shows in is a more immediately relevant choice of learning activities. So the learning activities, as I said, need to be well aligned, but also their immediate relevance to achieving your goal is very important. And somehow naturally, with all these comes a keenness for specific feedback on the student's part. And again, as you will see in the examples in the breakout rooms, feedback is an extremely important element of competence development. And I don't mind saying that assessment in such a setup, if you use such a model, becomes very natural, because it is natural to want to know how well you're doing, or what else you might be doing, so that you are even more proficient in the competence that you set out to develop. Now, actually, this is my almost final slide. The Compass guidelines, you will see the cover here. So it's the green volume, Compass model and guidelines for the development of assessment and assessment of generic competencies. And in addition to the model, it includes sections on how to plan for competence development, how to provide ample opportunities for students to practice the competence, at the same time maximizing authenticity, which I believe you will be hearing more in the next presentation, and obviously how to assess both process and outcomes. And here's a link as well to the model, but you already saw it on Daiva's slide as well. Thank you.
So thank you, Maria, very much. I hope that it gave like a broader understanding of what do we mean by competence development and assessment. And I wanted to add one detail, that we here are talking about generic competences, but we didn't mention these competences. And there are a lot of different lists of generic competences, but we agreed that we will be working on 5 areas of competences, which are like similar areas could be found in curriculums of any country. So, and one area is related to learning to learn and learning to think. Another area is related to managing self and self-regulation. The third one is related to interacting with others. The fourth one is related to interacting with the world and broader community. And the fifth area is related to living with technologies. So, but we will, and you will then in breakout rooms, you will meet with our mentors and teachers who will present concrete examples. So these examples will be related to the development of these competences. So, and now I would like to present our keynote presenters. The presentation, this keynote address is called Competences Development and, Continuous Assessment and Competences. And our presenters are Professor Najat Ouakrim-Soivio from Finnish Institute for Educational Research of University of Jyväskylä, and Dr. Päivi Nilivaara from Tampere University. So these researchers are, so their research interest is in competence assessment and development, and we hope that we will get more, we will go deeper into this topic of assessment.
Thank you, Egle.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we start, I generously thank you for this opportunity to have a joint presentation with my colleague Päivi. But I think we have a quite clear vision how we are going to do. So Päivi, please, could you please start?
Yes, sure. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody from rainy Porvoo, Finland. Unfortunately, the autumn has come to Finland as well. Yeah, and first of all, thank you for my colleagues in Compass project, Daiva and Maria and Egle, for starting this. It's been quite a, how would I say, huge journey until this ending point, and what we have been talking and what we have been doing during the project. And now with my colleague Najat, we are going to dig a bit deeper into the assessment part of competence development. And I try to share our presentation. Can you see it now? Yeah, okay, good. I would start by going a bit further back, trying to understand the nature of the competencies. And probably all these terms, you are familiar with these because we have so many frameworks, we have so many names for these transversal competencies, generic competencies. They are also called the 21st century skills, lifelong learning skills, key competencies, and even some national own concepts. This is, I would say, a bit confusing. But on the other hand, if you look at those names, they are all the names of the lists of certain competencies that might help a student to learn on the learning phase in the school, but also to succeed in their life and to behave in a, how would I say, reasonable manner in different kind of situations. So each of these names sort of open the door to understand the competencies. But for example, in Croatia, where I've been working, they call them cross-curricular teams, which shows us easily that they are not really linked to a specific subject, but they are linked to the whole curriculum and all the curriculum areas. 21st century skills, I think, tells us that they are something that we will need in the future. And also that they are all the time evolving, these skills, and we have to define all the time, again and again, what are the skills we will need in the future. But so anyway, we are speaking about generic competencies, not competencies linked to one specific subject, because we also have competencies in all subjects as well, but they're a bit different. These are generic, like crossing the curriculum. As I mentioned, there are so many frameworks, but all the frameworks share like still some common features. So they are transversal, as already mentioned. They are linked to many fields, and they are also multidimensional, meaning that they include knowledge, skills, attitudes, in many cases also values. And in the Finnish model, it also includes the volition, so the willing to contribute and willing to do good things in life. And one thing also, which is, I think, very important to understand from the assessment point, is that all these competencies are associated with higher order thinking, higher order skills and behaviors. So they are mean to be skills that are used in complex situations and unpredictable situations. So from the assessment point, I think they are quite difficult. Or what do you think, Najat?
Definitely. That's why we are taking a piece by piece in this presentation.
Yeah, sure. Ekle already mentioned that in the Compass project, we decided not to limit this competence development and assessment to these 5 areas, but we wanted to get examples. And I think these 5 areas, thinking and learning to learn, managing and taking care of oneself, interacting with and relating to others, and living in and contributing to the wider society and the world, and living with technology, they quite well, I think, cover most of the international models we have nowadays, and basically they cover all the curriculum areas we have in Lithuania, Romania and Finland. So that's why we ended up with these 5. But once again, if with, for example, managing and taking care of oneself. It's a huge area, combining many perspectives and many things. So from assessment point, again, this challenge us teachers very much indeed. And once again, thank you, Maria, for nicely presenting the compass model. But I just wanted to start by pointing out that in this presentation, we are mainly speaking about this red parts of the formative assessment and the diagnostic and summative assessment. Yeah, we may refer to them, but mainly about formative assessment, which is really much intervened with the teaching and learning activities, so it's continuous during the learning process. So this is like the basis for our presentation, and this is once again the holistic approach, which means in this Compass project we have many times speaking about competence enriched curriculum. It's not like a competence-based curriculum in none of our countries that has been part of this project. But anyway, if we want to include the competence development in our teaching and learning, so it means it's a holistic approach. It means also a lot about in terms of teaching and learning. So it's a turn from teacher-centered to student-oriented approach. It means perhaps new and versatile learning environments, networking with the outer society, and also to understand that the competencies are not something that we start learning that and then we stop learning. It's done, because it's a continuous process, and we have to understand what are the previous skills and competencies the students have, and how we can sort of support them to get further, because learning these competencies, I think it's a never-ending story, even for us adults. And also the assessment, of course, has to be to some extent competence-based. Or what do you think, Najat?
Yes, and thank you for in a way giving me the possibility to thank you for grounding this issue so clearly. Päivi, do you think I could share the presentation? It might be easier, okay. Or what do you think?
Oh, it's okay if you want.
Yeah, I think it might be easier. I have our presentation as well here, and when you said something about holistic approach, I think it's quite important to bear in mind that we don't assess without teaching or learning and working. So it's a kind of combination, even though we speak today in the perspective of assessment. And the second thing I would like to underline is that this holistic approach reminds us that none of these skills and competencies that you have been discussing and presenting today, so finally, they are not assessed separately. So they are assessed as a part of as a curricular subjects. I think it's also important for teachers to think beforehand how and what competencies they are intending to assess, and why they are doing that, and how they are assessing competencies. Because as Päivi earlier mentioned, these are not always so clear. So we as teachers, we have to be quite clear about the objectives, what we are assessing. And I will show you a kind of a picture, because I think most of us are in a way assessing and then giving feedback quite naturally when we are teaching and guiding our pupils and students. And actually, there are some scholars that don't really agree with that idea that observation-based assessment is a real assessment. But I maybe present another kind of scholars, because usually when we are teaching and guiding and discussing in a classroom, regardless the way the teaching and learning process is, we are looking and having information what kind of performance pupils have or individual people have. And we used to have a kind of perception or idea of the pupils' level or performance.
Anteeksi, diat ei vaihdu.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Olet siinä koko ajan siinä holistic approach.
Haluaisitko sä jakaa tämän? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, we will switch. So, Päivi, maybe you will share it, and I will
just let me know
sign
when
for you.
change.
Yes, I'm trying to show you this one. Thank you for telling me this. So I was trying to explain that quite often when we are teaching and guiding, we are also having feedback from the class, even though we don't verbally say anything. And then we are giving feedback for pupils. That is quite often based on teachers' perception of pupils' earlier competencies or performance. So it's a kind of our own experience plus our professional framework. And then this kind of holistic approach where we look teaching, learning, and assessing and then giving feedback, it's a kind of constant introduction. But there is at least one thing we have to bear in mind, and it is that quite often we think that pupils' performance is good because they remind us or they are accurate enough what we used to think. So in a way, we as a teachers, we have a double role because we are assessors and then we are observers. So that's one thing we have to bear in mind when we are doing the judgmental evaluation results. Are we really satisfied with what we see and hear? Do we see the development or not? And not maybe that perspective that if our perceptions are fulfilled. So this is maybe one thing that has to be said at this moment. Then we are continuing to the wonderful model you have been creating, because Päivi earlier, while we were planning this presentation, showed me, for instance, the plob tree. And I think it's a wonderful idea how to, in a way, explain what formative assessment is about. It has all the dimensions, I think. And if we look students, how the formative assessment looks in students' perspective, it should make students reflect their own learning, even though the goals might be set by teachers, but it's a good way to guide students also to reflect their own learning. Where they have been succeeding, what they haven't been achieved yet, what kind of corrections they might have to do, have they progressed, what kind of concrete examples they can, for instance, name to themselves or us, and is there some are there some goals they supposed to achieve? So what are the next steps? And maybe I refer what I earlier said, that in teacher's role or teacher's perspective, formative assessment should guide the students' learning process, help to see students' strengths, development, and progress, help to observe pupils' own actions realistically. I underline this realistically, and correct and help to continue the actions. So even though teachers and students are mainly reflecting the same things, you see the perspective is a bit different. I'm going a bit deeper to formative assessment, and what does it mean that we are trying to guide our pupils closer to metacognitive processes. So it mainly, for instance, if I use an example of self-assessment, it means that students have ability to reflect their own learning or their own feelings, or even what direction they are going. So the feedback they are having, either by themselves or by teachers or by their colleagues, so classmates, for instance. I will come later to the peer assessment. So it gives also to the pupil a kind of feeling of self-efficacy. These two things, metacognitive process and self-efficacy, are those why self-assessment is regarded as quite influential in formative assessment. And we have another picture. Would you like to?
Yeah, sure. And metacognition also part of the competences, thinking and learning to learn.
Yeah.
Very much.
Yes,
Indeed.
that was a good thing to say. So if I just quickly just show you this picture and what does it mean. So even little children, they have an ability to reflect, for instance, their own feelings, thoughts, and learning. And especially if someone is asking questions and guiding the young pupils. When we are talking about the upper secondary school age, around 15, we suppose that the young pupils, they do have a kind of self-assessment skills. So it's a structured protocol where they can assess their learning, their working, their behavior. And it was nice, Päivi, that you said that metacognitive level, because we know that it's something that will grow between age 16 to 25, but it is said also that around 10% of the adult population don't necessarily have the metacognitive skills they're supposed to have. And it's a kind of awareness of our own working and strategies that we use, for instance, in our daily working life. We have been trying to also show you that quite often we see that pupil is just ticking, for instance, an electronic self-assessment form, and then quite often it is said that now it's done. But actually, self-assessment, as well as assessment in general, it's a good start for the process. It should tell pupil, or it should give pupil a kind of insight or understanding how well I have been achieving my goals, what kind of direction I'm going. So actually, the self-assessment procedure, after ticking the boxes or choosing the sentences, is to strengthen pupils' insight and understanding, And then if a pupil sees or recognizes that this is not correct, I should do maybe more, or this part I know, this I haven't been understanding correctly. So the question is what I'm doing the next. So also possibility for corrections and also confirmations.
I quite often say that the direction of assessment is like going further, not looking back.
Yes, and when you are saying that, I remind you that in my first slide, when you saw the classroom assessment process, I mentioned that quite often it's not verbal. It's not something that is verbally said, but maybe it's also good to say that this is a kind of interaction between students and teachers. I mean, correction and confirmation. There, the verbal discussion is needed.
Sure, more like a dialogue.
Yes.
Okay, shall we?
Yes, we shall. We are going next to peer assessment, which means that the peers should have similar position. Teachers, peers, or students' peers, but never teacher and student. It's not peer assessment. So, and the feedback is given mainly for learning process and then working together. It's quite important that, for instance, we use today only pupils here, later maybe colleagues. Peer assessment, it's quite important that that in peer assessment there is something common that has been done, for instance, a work or project together, because it's quite artificial to start giving feedback if there is not a real everyday lives how can I say experience. What does it mean that we have been working together? So it's quite important that the working part and learning part is attached to peer assessment. And the aim for peer assessment is to support the students' commitment to the jointly set goals, and then working together, and then what and how I have been participating for the common work, for instance. If we are just looking teachers' role in peer assessment, it's quite important that teachers are involved, even though I said that peers means peers that have similar position. But teachers' role is also to give the instructions and then to guide, because we can't assume that students will learn on their own. If you hear in your first time when you are doing the peer assessment that students are saying, "Oh, this went well, this is quite okay," so you know that maybe they don't know that what they are expected to do and how they are expected to do. So that's why I underline also that teachers' role is to guide, give the instructions before the peer assessment starts. And the second thing I just mentioned is that we need a common objectives, common work, common projects, and it has to be attached to the peer assessment.
What do you think, Najat? Sometimes I see that students are asked to give like marks or grades to each other. What is your opinion about this?
You knew this
already.
That's why I said that no. If you show the next slide, I think we have something. Yes, thank you. Because instead of using marks or grades, because it directs in a really wrong direction. It means that I'm giving marks as a peer to Päivi, for instance. Instead of you should maybe use letters or even pictures or verbal sentences. So this is a kind of concrete way of guiding. So first, for instance, has to be said what the assessment or peer assessment will focus on. So what we will assess as a peers, and then how feedback will be given. If you know that in your group pupils don't necessarily respect each other, they are not saying things nicely, maybe you could, for instance, say that that now you use only positive feedback. It's a good start for this learning process. I would say that never grades, but instead of all other possibilities like letters. And then it would be a good idea to give a short description that A means this, B means that, C means that, because it might be difficult for me to give feedback to some of you I don't necessarily know so well. But if I have a kind of scale and then a kind of written criteria, short one, it will allow me to say that in this description for A, I think you have been participating finely to our common work, or we have been working finely because it reminds me this letter. And then it's a good idea also to have an agreement how the feedback will be provided. Is it verbally? Is it written? Is it the kind of formula that we are later ticking? So I would say that these four steps are quite good guidelines for students.
And I think in the framework of competencies, this kind of a peer assessment is a very good tool. Also, because we are quite often speaking about contribution when we speak about competencies and doing something instead of knowing. Yeah. In addition, of course, to the teacher feedback. But
yes, so this is something peers, the students are giving to each other. And then as a kind of end for self and peer assessment, before we just do a few other things or approach a few other things, we have been discussing with Päivi that maybe authenticity is one of the things that is quite tightly linked also to competencies. So regardless what kind of project you have or what kind of work you are conducting in your classes, the perspective for authenticity maybe would be a good idea to at least reflect, because it's quite well, it's usually if I'm thinking classroom context, it's usually qualitative. It's mostly verbal. It strengthens the metacognition of students, and it puts learning, working, teaching, assessing together. Quite good example of this is a portfolio. So you create something either separately or with your peer or with your group. Then you collect those works or those parts you would like to show and reflect. And in the end, you have a kind of package of work that, for instance, tells to you and to your teacher and your classmates what kind of competencies, for instance, you have been handling during one project. So this is just one example of it. Then I think we approach to the feedback question. So next we will shortly discuss about feedback as a part of learning process, because we know that there are some activities or ways of doing that are strengthening in the perspective of pupils' learning. First of one is that the general feedback, it's nice to hear, for instance, nice wording, but it doesn't necessarily tell for an individual student anything. So instead of saying something general, it might be a good idea to address a concrete feedback to the students. Also, if there are some corrections to make, a corrective feedback, it's good to say openly, nicely, but concretely, in that way that students understand what should be corrected and why. It's a good idea also to leave a kind of space for pupils if they quickly understand that, I have to do in that way. So they have already learned quite a lot based on your feedback. So we have been bolding that mistakes are a real opportunity to learn. Then, as I mentioned, feedback should be clear, because if it's something too general, unspoken, it's not always clear to pupil what we are trying to tell. And if you have possibility to give the feedback as quickly as you can, it's good, because pupils remember, or students remember, what they have been thinking, what they have been doing. Then feedback involves dialogue. So students also might have suggestions, or they might tell, as my former students told me, that, don't you see that I have been trying to improve? So it might be a new information also to me to recognize that something has been happening. So in feedback, there is always this dialogue part. And what is also important is that feedback is based on facts, not descriptions, not opinions, not my personal insights. And that's why, even we are talking about the top performing students, they also need a concrete feedback, because it strengthens their way of seeing themselves as learners.
I think that sometimes a good question for a student is the best possible feedback. For example, when they have to explain what they have been doing or something, they will realize themselves, what should I do differently or something.
For instance, why questions, even though they might be a bit annoying, but when they ask why, it means that they have been reflecting at least something. It's not just a why question.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And the next.
Yeah. We have been taking the quite known Hatties and Timberleys levels of feedback, because while giving the feedback, it's quite important that we concentrate on process level, because in that way we are really helping students to learn from their process, to see how they have been achieving the goals. The task level is something we do mainly. It's a kind of yes, no, right, wrong kind of feedback, and we are doing that constantly. But if we want to go deeper, so we should maybe concentrate more to the process level, and also to the self-regulation level, because it means that even though students are about to finish in in the middle of the work, and then they are having a kind of self-regulation feedback, or feedback that are encouraging self-regulation, and they continue till the end. So it means that it increase self-awareness and self-efficiency. Then there is that mention about person level, because when you are giving feedback that are based on facts, try to avoid personal or that kind of feedback that can be considered as a personal, oh, you are such a nice pupil, even though it's important to say that time to time. During the learning process, it leads to a completely different direction.
And I think that Hattie and Timberley, in the research, they found that about 90% of feedback is on task level.
Yes, yes.
And in the context of competence development, I don't see it very, very useful at all.
Yes.
So
yes.
total process and self-regulation are the levels that might be good and useful. Okay.
Okay, I think this will be our almost last part, because we have been discussing today. You started with the fine competence model and create how it has been created. We have been discussing about mainly formative assessment, and I would like to, in a way, tease you in a little, because Xus and Brown's TALIP model, Teachers Assessment Literacy in Practice model, is something that describes well what kind of assessing process we have been shortly discussing today. So if you look the cornerstone, so the first part, the knowledge-based, I think we have been discussing quite many of those knowledge part today. But then there is also teachers' conception of assessment we haven't been touched. We discussed the validity of observation-based assessment, but I think it's a good thing to bear in mind that we all have that affective and cognitive dimensions. It might be in that way that we don't necessarily, as learners, we don't like group work. It might be in that way. And peer assessment is sounding weird, something I haven't been using ever. So we have those at least two dimensions. Then I think it's quite important to recognize that we are learning. Even though we have been teaching for decades, we are also learners, and as teachers and assessors, our identity is changing constantly. So it's not something stable. We are learning all the time new things, and sometimes it pushes us in a corner we don't necessarily like to be, but it's also a good thing to recognize. And if you look, the next list Päivi is showing us, I think that if you reflect a small moment or short moment, what kind of teacher have assessment literacy skills, with plural. So it's someone who reflects regularly on assessment practices, participate to develop projects that concern assessment, discuss professionally about assessment, is a person who discusses critically own concepts of assessment, and acquire new knowledge and skills about assessment in order to renew the understanding about their own assessment practices. So even if you tick one of these 5 things, I think it makes it concrete. What does it mean that we as teachers have assessment literacy skills?
And I think that all the people on this webinar or seminar right now, they have assessments, literacy skills, because they're gaining new information and knowledge on the compass model.
Yes, and that's so easy to tell you. You are that kind of audience that I know that you are ticking almost every box. But we have a small little surprise, haven't we, Päivi?
Yes. Yeah.
So we have been deciding to give each other feedback. We haven't been discussing this a lot. I yesterday called to Päivi and we had an idea to give feedback about working together as a pair. So we have a similar position and we have a kind of same kind of background. And I think we decided to give feedback for working together, the development area, and the strengths.
Sure.
And it is given here in front of you all verbally.
Let me start.
Okay. Okay.
Would you like to start?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I think I see the two of us sitting on the branch, having our arms like this, because I think we have a quite long history together. We have learned how to work together, and I see that we are looking at the same direction often, and we share ideas, and we respect each other.
If I continue, what I really appreciate working with you is that we've quite often firstly discussed together, then we do separately our own works, and I really can count on you. You have never let anything not done when we have agreed that we will continue like this. Sometimes, Päivi, I would appreciate if you could have more courage to say no to me, because I know that you are so polite and nice. Sometimes I wonder whether you really want to do this or that, or you choose something, you say it so nicely. So this is one of the development areas I have been thinking while working with you. But I think our strength is also that we can discuss, even though we can discuss and share maybe those kind of working issues that are not easily shared. So that's one of the things I think I have been learning from you while working with you.
Talking about the strengths, I think that one of your strengths is flexibility, and probably both of us. So whatever happens, we are flexible and we support each other and just carpe diem.
Yes.
What is needed. I'm thinking about the development areas from your side. You have a researcher background. I know that it's our sin to put too much text on the slides. So I'm the one who usually try to make them a bit nicer and less text on the slides.
And luckily you have eye for that.
Okay.
So, and as you see, the blob tree is really some kind of decoration that tells also, it helped actually to give feedback for you, Päivi. So thank you for having me for this short discussion. It has been a pleasure to be with you this moment.
Thank you, Najat, and thank you from my side as well. And I think we have used our time, so we don't have any more time for questions at the moment.
And thank you for the hearts and the lovely feedback.
So thank you, Päivi. Thank you, Najat. It was really very interesting, and it lead somehow. I thought that we really should probably make some peer assessment of our working in this project sometime till the end of the project. And unfortunately, we do not have time for questions, but probably we'll continue with discussions in our breakout rooms. So now I'd like to help us prepare for work in the breakout rooms. So now, before the break, we will organize ourselves into breakout rooms. But before that, I'd like to tell you what we will be doing in these breakout rooms. So all of us, Virgita will mix us all together, and we'll get into different breakout rooms by accident, not and the main goal is that we would share examples. In every breakout room there will be 2 examples from different countries presented, and also we'll have the opportunity to discuss our experience, to discuss what kind of lessons learned during this project, what challenges and opportunities in the development and assessment of generic competences. So, and now it is very, very important that right after I'll finish just this short introduction to breakout rooms, Virgita will open these rooms, and each of us will have to join the room before the break. And then we'll have a short break, and we'll meet at 3:30 right after the break, and we will meet directly in the breakout room. So is it clear that we should join breakout rooms right now? Okay, so Virgita,
That's all. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
thank you, Daiva. And I'd like to invite Ariana, who was facilitating the second room.
Yeah, we were 18 people in the second room, and we had 2 presentations, one made by Aras and the other one made by Anka, both related to somehow scientific subjects, let's say, because Aras had a unit in physics and Anka chose a unit in sort of electrical something, because she's teaching this part of technological subjects in vocational school. I think in both cases we managed to see the compass model stages, and it was highlighted the fact that it was very important to involve the students in defining the competencies, because then they can relate to their learning in a better way. They both showed the process, the whole process of with diagnostic assessment and learning activities and formative assessment and summative assessment, and somehow decided at the end with the students what they have to focus on from now on. The shared instruments were very much appreciated by the people in the breakout room. And yeah, unfortunately, it would be best if we would know 1 minute before then that the breakout room is closing. So we didn't manage to have a proper closing in the breakout room, but in short, that's it.
Thank you, Ariana. Okay, so I will shortly present the third room. So we also had 18 participants, but unfortunately, not all participants were very active in our room. So we were two presentation, one by Tatiana from Romania, and it was on digital competence, living with technologies. And this example was like the whole year course on living with technology, which would cover all kinds of very complex aspects of this competence. And another example was presented by Ina from Lithuania. And this example was related to the area of interacting with others. And it was used during geography subject, and it was meant for learning how to participate in discussions, how to discuss, providing good arguments, how to listen to others, how to defend your own opinion, and so on. So and afterwards we were discussing what are the lessons learned from these examples, and Ina and Tatiana were talking about that it somehow helped to understand what competence means. So, and how to present it to students, how to help students to understand why it is important to develop generic competences, and that it is not just a buzzword, but it is something important and something serious, and that these generic competences are really the development of generic competences are really important for students, especially in this constantly changing and uncertain world. But also that there are certain challenges, that it takes a lot of time, a lot of preparation, and also that teachers should work together, that teachers should cooperate and should learn from each other, and also plan and work together, and also so we were discussing that of course, like the development of these competencies, it fits to our national curriculum, but you need to adjust your the whole process to implement the model. But this model is like feasible and could be adapted to different curriculum models, different curriculum frameworks. Okay, so let's go to the room number 4, and Päivi, please, floor is yours.
Thank you. In our room number 4, we had around 15 or 16, I think, participants and 2 presentations. The first one, by the way, I have to say that we have some issues with living with technology. So we realized that it's a long journey to develop the competencies and also to develop the system so that they work. Anyway, so the first presentation was by Matti from Finland, which was a project with third graders, and it was about healthy eating habits. So it was managing and taking care of oneself. That's how we call it in Finnish, in the Finnish curriculum. It was, I think that it was very strict and concrete description how the model and the phases are integrated in the planning and the implementation of the learning experience for the students, and that was also feedback from Matti that this model like gives a good structure, sort of also like a routine for a teacher to build learning lessons or learning experiences for the students. Also, what the other one, the other presentation by Gediminas from Lithuania, it was also the third graders, and the idea was to family budget planning, and it was also related to managing daily life, but from the very different angle, and it was like a simulation process done in groups. So the students formulated small families, and they had to make the budget and think how their money will share in different, or how they allocate their money to different areas like food and some entertainment and so on. So there were two very different approaches. So the first one from Matti was like individual, very like personal learning experience, because it was about the individual learning habit, eating habits in school, and the other one was a group endeavor as a simulation. But in both cases, it was easy to recognize the compass model. So I was so happy to see that it really works in many ways. And also, but Gediminas pointed out that they are becoming an IB school, which is pretty much a competence-oriented approach to teaching and learning. And he said that this compass model will definitely help the teachers to go deeper into the competencies. But anyway, the feedback was from the presenters, but good. Unfortunately, we didn't have very active discussion in the breakout room, but so we didn't get much feedback from other participants. Basically, thank you for the presenters in our group.
Thank you. And the last but not least, our fifth room, and Maria, please, floor is yours.
Thank you. So in our room, we also had two presenters, Christina from Romania and Agne from Lithuania. Both of them described their experiences with lower secondary schools. Christina from a Romanian language and literature lesson, and Agne from the perspective of technology, but not only. So both of the presenters highlighted the way they got started, and I understood that there was a lot of investment of time and effort into getting started. Christina also gave us a taste of how she got started thinking about how to develop her students' communication skills, oral communication skills. And Agne described how, I don't know, 6 or 7 teachers got together trying to figure out what exactly they will be focusing on and how to word those very specific behaviors so that students can grasp them. While Christina engaged the students in defining oral communication, I understand that Agne was more of a collaborative effort and making sure that the students understood what the 3 basic targets for them, cooperate, be positive, and let others learn, would mean. What I found interesting is that, on the one hand, clearly the process along the compass model was manageable. In terms of assessment, as I said, what I found very interesting was, as Agne pointed out, that her students were assessed not only by the teacher or by themselves, but the parents also were engaged in not only the assessment, in fact, but the whole process. There was a lot of communication with the parents in the Lithuanian case. And what I would like to point out about Christina's approach was that she found she could transfer, I mean, her students' skills developed in the lesson, focusing on oral communication, with the effort going into defining the competence, was then easily transferred to other subsequent lessons as well. And yes, we didn't have a lot of interaction, but we did have a gentleman from Pakistan who shared the challenge of developing competencies when you teach 130 students at the same time. And we kind of said, well, that's difficult. We empathize. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for all the groups, and I hope that for our participants it is like much more clear. So what we were doing in this project and how it reflects how this model is being implemented in real practice, and I'm really very glad that we see the continuation, that it is not what was not only used during the project, but we could see in all the schools that it found its place in the daily life of participating schools, and it will be lively. So we are going to the end of our conference, and Daiva presented all the products, all the results which are created in the project, and the final result is some recommendations. We developed recommendations for teachers, for school communities, for teacher trainers, and policymakers. So let me present these recommendations. I will share my screen in a moment. Yes, so this little book on recommendations is in red. so you will find it together with our products. So firstly, we should say that what we found out, that like everybody agrees that the development and assessment of generic competences is really important and even inevitable in terms of what does it mean for personal development of each student, and also for the social development, and also for the development of and also for career of our students, and so on. So and there are like three main issues, three main challenges, and all the countries are facing these challenges. So the first one is related to the like that it means a lot of preparation, and also it should fit into the overall education system. And sometimes there are certain tensions, especially with the assessment system and so on. The second challenge is that this approach to competence development, it requires much broader agreement, not only within education sectors, but also with other stakeholders. And the third one is related to teacher development, that mainly our teachers are developed as and trained as subject teachers, and now they are developing competences, and sometimes it is quite hard to to switch from one system which is more like subject oriented to another system which is more like competence oriented. So, and now speaking about teachers, what do we recommend for teachers? So we recommend that teachers use like long-term planning, and teachers would identify topics or identify like context which is suitable for competence development. And sometimes teachers, they want like too much, they want to develop a lot or all competences, but it is not possible. So we recommend teachers to focus on one or two competences at a time, and plan and like practice this long-term planning. We also recommend to use like complex and real life tasks such as inquiry-based or project-based or problem-based learning, and to use this kind of methods. And also we recommend that teachers would see diagnostic, formative, and summative assessment as as a whole, to look at it holistically, and that it would help to assess progress in competence development. And the last but not least is what was mentioned already, that it is very important, this collaboration with students, that students would be very much involved in the like planning phase, and in this phase then we are like clarifying what is this competence about, and also collaborate with colleagues, because it is impossible to do it alone. We should work together if we want to develop generic competences. And that is very much related to school communities. So, and we think that schools should foster a culture that supports competence development, and how it should be fostered by integrating competence development into school's strategy, into school-based curriculum, and in daily life. Also, it might be helpful to develop certain teams of teachers, inter-subject, cross-subject teams that would oversee competence development through various subjects. Also, that teachers should be provided with support, with resources, with peer learning and mentoring. And it is also very important that school communities should allocate some time and space for collaboration and mutual learning. And of course, what was also already mentioned, that parents and students should be informed, should be involved, and they should become part of this competence development system at schools. We think that teacher education programs, they should be really updated, and that they should include competence development. And in both initial and in-service teacher training, and also especially then teacher training programs. Sometimes they are related to to different subjects. So there should be found a space and a time where this like cross-subject approach should be introduced. And as we developed compendium of scientific literature, and we developed compendiums of practice. So we also think that it should be used by teacher trainers. And teacher educators should network, should foster teachers exchange and learning from practice, and this project is really developed quite a lot of opportunities for that. And now we are coming to policymakers. So what should be done at the policy level? So we think that it should be ensured that competence development and assessment should be seen systematically, and it should should cover curriculum, learning materials, exams, and all the elements of education system. And there should be a long-term strategy how to move from subject-based to competence-based curriculum. But it is not only about curriculum, but also about real practice. We also recommend that there should be systematic support for competence-based learning at all levels. And also, we think that it is very important that formal education and non-formal education would be more integrated, and that there would be more integration between these two different like systems, and they should learn from each other, and also there should be found some bridges how to acknowledge student competences developed in different systems. And also we also recommend that professional development would be also ensured, and it should be based on high quality research and proven classroom practice. So here are our recommendations. And we are already moving to the very end of our conference. So we would like to thank everybody for your participation. But also, I would like to open, we still have few minutes. So especially, I would like to invite those who were not part of our project, that maybe you have some ideas, some thoughts, some takeovers, and maybe some ideas have risen from our discussions. Mm-hmm.
I would ask you if you could remain a motion.
Yes, so I see that Virgita sent us all a message. So there is a short survey, to evaluate this conference in the chat box. So we would be really very, very grateful if you would do that, if you see this. Can you see can you see it? Okay, because somehow I cannot see it yet. Oh, yes, yes. Yes, so we would be really very, very grateful if you would fill in this short questionnaire, and we hope that that experience of Compass project will be useful for you, and that you are were enriched with some new ideas. So let's spend few minutes to fill the questionnaire.